because you guys make this, you make it so we have fun every day that we come to work, and so we can't really even call it work. So we appreciate that. So thank you for coming out, because now we can really play. I hope you noticed that you have traveled to a tropical paradise. So that's why I want to talk about Antarctica. So in the beginning of the year, we did this really cool event where we got to go out the first time since COVID, and we got together with Seiko. It was just a bunch of stores. We got together, and Seiko put on this really cool presentation, and it was done by Becky, and we loved it. So we've been stalking her ever since over social media, and she finally gave in about 2 weeks ago to provide such a short window between the invite and the party. But she finally gave in, and we're really, really thankful, and we're lucky to have her here. This presentation is really awesome. It hasn't quite convinced me to go to Antarctica. Mostly because of the trip over there. When she tells you about that, you might also reconsider. But she's very well traveled. Her pictures, her video is amazing. I know you're gonna really appreciate it. And a big thank you to Seiko. Seiko! Woo! Thank you, Seiko, for helping us to put this on, and for having Becky as a brand ambassador, as a friend of the brand, because, well, from my perspective, it's really nice to have some female friends of the brand out there. In a very male-dominated world. So I'm going to let Becky talk, because this is really my thing. But thank you from my family. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you guys have a wonderful time. Watch Becky's presentation, and then go ahead and buy a lot of watches, okay?
Traveling to the Arctic and Antarctic, which is what I'm going to talk about today. So literally, I have gone to the ends of the earth for Seiko. Both ends. And it's been a lot of fun. So just a little quick blurb about me. I am a professional underwater photographer and cinematographer, and I love diving. Diving is my number one favorite thing to do on this planet and under it. I started diving 28 years ago, and I have never stopped. I just love taking pictures underwater, video, and sharing these experiences with divers and non-divers, because there's so many incredible underwater environments, from underwater caves to shipwrecks to marine life like sharks and dolphins and turtles and manatees, and I just love it all. I like a variety. So I do spend a lot of time traveling all over the world to shoot a lot of different things. I do a lot of writing for magazines. I have a brand new show coming out next Saturday on Smithsonian Channel called Great Lakes Untamed, and I'm both in it and shot it. So if you get the Smithsonian Channel, you can see that. I've also shot for National Geographic, Discovery Channel, Red Bull, a lot of the major networks out there. And so I really enjoy all of these things. I've won 5 Emmy Awards, and I'm in the Explorers. Okay, that's all. So out of all the diving I do, I love shipwrecks and caves, and a lot of my family and friends will ask, well, why ice diving? Like, that's kind of random, isn't it cold? Why would you want to go ice diving? And growing up in Florida, I never thought I would ever dive in the Arctic or Antarctic or under any kind of ice. I thought anything less than 65 degrees was the Arctic until I actually went there. But I really enjoy it because it's just so completely different. Ice is a very challenging environment. It is freezing cold. Your gear has to work and function at all times. Ice changes, and it's like ice like this that I'm touching. When your bubbles hit the surface, it's like mercury just like flowing across as a white ceiling, just like this tent. So it's really, really unique diving. It's also full of adventure, and I like a good adventure. There's a lot of different types of ice diving. It's not just one. Ice diving doesn't fall under one category. You can dive on icebergs, like the top picture there. You can take a chainsaw out to a frozen lake, and that's what I call a desperate diver. And cut a hole in the ice with your chainsaw and dive under it, and that's flat ice, so you do have to be tethered because you need to make it back to that exit, or obviously you're going to have big problems. And in ice water, our gear doesn't always work. You can have the best gear available, but cold water just makes regulators free flow. It's not kind to equipment. And then there's pack ice. And pack ice is also really interesting. That's what we dive in birding a lot. And pack ice can be dangerous because not only does it move slowly and can kind of crush together, but it's also where polar bears like to hunt. And I look like a seal when I'm dressed in my gear. And so we have to actually go out with guides and people to specifically look for polar bears while we're diving and make sure that there's none in the area. And then the last kind of ice that I think is one that I talked to you a little bit about today, but it's diving inside the glacier. And I'm one of only a handful of people in the world that has ever dived inside of the glacier. So pretty fascinating. But ice is really neat. You can pancake ice, like ice can crunch up. My mom thinks I'm absolutely insane. She lives in Orlando and she's like, you like jumping into that slushy water? Like ice, it goes around your drink. I love my mom. So I planned an expedition to shoot the Generation 2 ice diver watches for Seiko, and we were supposed to go to Antarctica, and that was in 2020, then 2021, and finally we're like, all right, we can't get anywhere, we can't get to Norway, we can't get out of the United States, so where can we go? Because ice, Alaska. But everywhere in Alaska that I've been to in the past, in the ocean, has pretty terrible visibility, and it's really not very photogenic for underwater photography. So I started doing more research and called up a friend of mine and said, hey, I've seen these glacial muons that look like they've got crystal clear water in the glaciers. Can we dive in that? And he kind of sighed and went, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, it's kind of dangerous. Like, okay, tell me more, why? So this is what muons look like, and in the summer, this is what they look like in the summer, and the glacial meltwater just kind of fills up these pools, and they can be shallow to deep, they can go hundreds of feet deep, and these pools of water actually go underneath the glacier and help lubricate the glacier, and that's why glaciers move. But glaciers move, so they can drain really fast. So that was the danger. He said, well, if we go out there, it's like flushing a toilet. These muons could just be full of water 1 second and dry, 40 minutes later. Okay, so I still was interested. I said, well, why don't we do it in the winter time then? Like, how about November when it's frozen and the glacier isn't moving as quickly? And we put a big safety team together and decided to try to trek out there in November and do this. This is expedition diving. We really didn't know what we were going to find, but it's one of the only places that we could get to. So we started out by rappelling down into some dry muons and checking out some ice caves. And this is exactly what everything looked like underwater, just on dry land. And it did take a lot of equipment. It takes a lot of equipment anyway, but we wear double tanks for, especially when you're in an overhead environment, so there's no free flows, we have a backup, so the tanks can be very heavy. We needed additional tanks for safety. We needed ice screws, harnesses, ropes. We needed our chainsaw. And it's an expedition when you're flying in a helicopter and there's an auger in between your legs. That's pretty awesome. But we had to take 4 trips back and forth each day. To bring all of the equipment, the people, the photographers, our cameras out to the glacier. And we couldn't have hiked out to this area. There's no way we could hike there. So we needed to take a helicopter. We'd get everything out there. And then here's the other kicker. Since we did it in November, there was only 7 hours of daylight. So we needed to do it all really fast. So we'd get out there, we'd land on the frozen snow, get everything out. And this is what our base camp looked like. That little red tent, and then there was a little ice hole that we cut out in the middle of this glacier. This is the Matanuska Glacier in Alaska. So here's my friend who lives in Alaska. He got his chainsaw out, and we did a couple little test holes to look for a deeper area. And again, this is expedition diving. We did not know what we were going to find. It could have been frozen solid. We didn't know if the ice would even be thick enough to stand on. And it was about 12 inches thick, so we were good. And he's the crazy one with the ice and pick and like digging the ice out with his hand exposed in the water. Definitely know he lives in Alaska. But he's definitely a local. We got out there and we expected temperatures maybe at least 20 degrees, but no, it was -9 the first day, -12 the next day, and then it continued on to -14 and 15. I never got in -15-degree temperatures, and I certainly learned that is the limitation of most of our equipment because everything was freezing up and breaking. It was very, very difficult. So here we are setting up. I'm holding the yellow rope that we use ice screws to anchor onto the ground, and then we wear harnesses to clip the rope off to, so in case this glacier drained, we were able to ditch here and be pulled out, hopefully. But if you're gonna go, that's kind of a cool way to go. Thank you for laughing at me. So here we are, Larry. That's me with my non-dry hair, all set up, ready to go, contemplating why I did become an accountant or something else. Sitting on cold, cold ice and -15-degree temperatures out on a glacier. And I was actually thinking my life is pretty freaking amazing right now. This is really cool. So, we get geared up on the surface, and usually you don't breathe off of the regulators because they can freeze on the surface, and we jump into the water after that. So we jump in, make sure nothing's leaking in your dry suit, make sure all your gear is functioning, and then down you go. So this is also something new that's never happened to me in the 28 years that I've been diving. I sat on the edge of the ice, and anyone in here who's a diver, you probably use mask defog, right? Simple. I dipped my mask in the water. Yeah, you know, yeah. The mask, it was a block of ice, and I sat there looking really sad with my mask going, I don't know what to do. So I had to stick it in the 32-degree water to warm it up before putting it back on my face. And even underwater, it took about 5 minutes of me scratching at the mask to finally get the ice to come off of the mask. So you can see it looks broken, but that's just ice. So once we descended down into the glacier, again, we were the first ones to ever do this in the winter, but there were only 4 people to ever do this ahead of us in the summertime. So I live for this kind of thing. It's absolutely amazing. So we descended down into the glacier, and I do a lot of cave diving, and it reminded me of a cave, except it was complete ice. It was gorgeous. The ice sparkled, and even though there was a foot of ice over our heads, there was still a lot of ambient light pouring down. So it was really blue, and we didn't really need underwater lights to illuminate it. So it was absolutely beautiful. It sparkled, and it was really soft and silky. If you hit the bottom, you kind of slid down on the ice. So there's not much to do under ice. So we just go around and kind of like feel it, look for different formations, and there were some really, really interesting formations. There were tunnels and just different cracks in the ice. You could see some of the cracks that were like pressure cracks from the ice expanding and contracting over time in summer and winter. Pieces break off. It's a really, really unique environment. So we swam down some of these like ice cave tunnels, and our rope is only about 200 feet long, so we didn't go any further than 200 feet, which was definitely far enough. And but it's crystal clear. I mean, you can see how beautiful the water is, and this is probably some of the freshest, purest water I've ever been in. It's stunning. So we came through some of these tunnels. We kind of went down until they pinched off, and we couldn't go any further, and then we'd turn around. And this I found really fascinating as well. So there were a lot of these cracks, and they're pressure cracks from the summer when the glacier moves and it breaks. And then the cracks refill with crystal clear fresh water. So, I mean, they're just translucent and blue. Really beautiful. And again, that's one of the things I love about ice is it's always changing and it's dynamic. If we dived in this glacier again next month, a year later, it would probably look completely different from pieces breaking and changing and melting and refreezing. So ice is a very, very dynamic thing. So yeah, that's a closer shot of one of those cracks. Yeah, it's really interesting. It was really cold. But here's the kicker. The water being 32 degrees was 42 degrees warmer than the air. So we stayed under for about 2 hours. They were almost a long time. I didn't want to come up. It was great. Poor people on the surface freezing. But they were like, are you cold? We need to get you out of there. No, I'm good. When we cut the ice hole, there was actually steam coming off the hole because -14 versus 32 degrees. So it was really, really interesting. Once we surfaced, everything froze. Dry suit inflators froze. Like none of you people were just, quite honestly, and that sounds like a gimmick, the watch was the only thing that burned. No, really.
And the face matched the water and the ice, the translucent.
It does. It's inspired by the colors of ice, right? And it's the same shade. So
How deep down did you go?
we only were 25 feet deep,
Okay.
so it was very shallow.
You can stay down.
Yeah, that's why we had to stay down for 2 hours because it was very shallow. And then I told this story to somebody earlier, but just something neat, which you can kind of see in this picture. But ice was actively forming on the crystal of the watch and on my dome board of my camera while we were diving, while we were underwater, and I keep brushing it off. I would take some pictures of one of my dive buddies wearing a different Seiko watch, and I'd think, oh, my picture's blurry, what's going on? And then I'd swim up to him, I'm like, oh no, there's ice on the watch. Brush that off. So, yeah, the ice watch just had ice. Pretty accurate. So, it was pretty cool. So after everything was frozen in the dry suit, the zipper was frozen, the gloves were frozen to my suit, the watch was frozen to my suit. We had to get in the helicopter and fly out to the cabins and get in a hot tub to get out of here. I really hate my job. Actually, no, I don't. You can see how the dry suit's just frozen solid. So the trick is to get out of all of your gear as fast as possible because everything just starts to freeze. Even getting out in the helicopter, you're just sort of like an ice cube as you're wondering the durability of your suit when something's going to break. But it was a really beautiful, beautiful place. I hope to return someday, hopefully in the summer when it's still cold and my eyelashes will freeze together. That would be enjoyable. I couldn't do any of this without an amazing support team. I have safety divers who do a lot of planning. You don't just go out there with a chainsaw and cut a hole in the ice and say, let's go do this. We put months of planning into doing dives like this. We had another photographer, and then there's people that aren't in the picture. There were about 8 of us in total, including the helicopter pilot who was like a rock star helping us with like ice screws and tending the ropes and everything like that. So really, really amazing team. So, all right, what do you do after you dive inside a glacier? I mean, that's pretty epic. Well, 6 weeks later, we were off to Antarctica. Antarctica finally opened. So this was in January. We left January 1st. So it was actually flying to South America over on New Year's Eve to go to Antarctica. And it's great because we had planned it for several years, and Seiko had been to Antarctica in the past, in the 60s, I believe. So we had planned this entire, let's take Seiko returns to Antarctica. And so we had to pull it together, but it was great to finally get out there. But to get there, it's a little bit of a challenge. Not as easy as taking a helicopter to a glacier. So, has anyone ever been to Antarctica?
Yeah.
Yeah? Awesome. Did you get the Drake Shake or the Drake Lake?
Great place.
You got the lake? Oh, you need to go back. That's not fair. Okay, there's something. So you have to cross. You fly down to South America and to Ushuaia, Argentina, and you have to cross the Drake Passage, which is the most treacherous sea on the planet. You either get the Drake Shake, which can be up to 50, 60 foot waves, Or you can get the Drake Lake, which is like, it could be like nothing, maybe under 10 feet. I've been 3 times to Antarctica, and the first time I had the big shake. We had 30-foot seas each way. The second time I had the Drake Lake, it was like 6 foot, it was great. And then our trip with Seiko, it was like somewhere in the middle. It was like 18-foot seas. What did I go through? That was 18-foot seas. Still, it wasn't terrible. I actually really enjoyed like seeing the fierceness of the ocean. You are kind of thinking, I'm traveling to one of the most remote places on the planet. We've got my EPIRB attached to me, and just it's kind of freaky. But it takes 2 days in seas like that, and then you finally start seeing like things calm down. It's like going through a portal, and everything calms down, the weather changes, and you start seeing these massive icebergs go by. And then you start seeing Shetland Islands and different fjords and mountains, and it's absolutely stunning. No people live in Antarctica. There are science stations, but there are people that live in the Arctic, but not in Antarctica. So it is very, very remote. You start passing by really, really interesting formations, ice formations, and then the wildlife. Yes, this is why I love Antarctica. You start seeing different species of penguins go by. This is a Gentoo penguin. They're one of the fastest in the world. They can swim 25 miles per hour, and they're amazing. Start seeing leopard seals. This is a crab-eater seal sitting out on the ice. Humpback whales, dinky whales, fin whales, all of them will come right up next to the boat. And what's incredible is, one of the reasons I like going to Antarctica is because the life isn't really afraid of you. They don't see humans and they don't see ships very often, and they'll just come up and investigate. They're very, very curious. To me, this picture encapsulates Antarctica. You've got glaciers and fjords, and you hear the cracking of the ice and silence like you've never heard before. It's so peaceful and beautiful. Actually, silence except for all the penguins walking. And all the penguin poop. We do take an expedition ship out there, like around 200 to 300 feet long, depending on the ship. Usually it only takes 100 people, and that's because you can't actually land on any part of Antarctica with more than 100 people. So there are like big cruise ships that'll go to Antarctica, but you don't get off the ship. Or they might get off on Zodiacs, but you will never touch land. You'll never touch the continent. So we do these expedition ships. They're not fancy, but you're able to get off and do different landings and see more of and experience more of Antarctica. So I love icebergs. I mean, again, ice is always changing. It's dynamic. The colors, the shapes, when the sun comes out, it looks like diamonds. It glistens. It's really pretty. Nature's diamonds. So here I am on one of the Zodiacs in a lot of brash ice, looking for penguins, I believe, this day. Or seals. That was a very fat leopard seal. Not very exciting. But as you can see, they're not really bothered by you. One day we came up on this pod of, 25 crab-eater seals, and they were just coming up right next to this glacier. We couldn't have had a more beautiful background. Yeah. Yawning leopard seal. Here you are, you're in Antarctica. You're like, come on, do something. We'll just wait there. Yeah. This little guy, so this was on our trip in January, and there was a lot of ice in January. It was all over the shoreline and just crunched up together. So this poor little, I watched this penguin for a while, and he was trying to navigate his way, like, off of the ice to get to the water. So it's funny, because they fall down, they slip, they fall on their backs, they fall off the ice, and they kind of laugh, and they just, like, pick themselves up, shake it off, and keep moving forward. So you can see how much ice was up on the shoreline at this time of year. So they are nesting in January, and the chicks hadn't hatched yet. So the parents are still going out and feeding and trying to find their way out to the ocean. Here's a little closer shot. So, oh, the kids. Penguins actually are like little claws on the ends of their they're flippers. They can climb like sheer walls of ice. They're very, very tenacious litters. And very curious. Yeah, they'll come right up to you, kind of like, look up, what are you? Shrug and walk away. Pretty funny. They're also very investigative. They try to steal things. This one had good taste. It was trying to steal my Manfrotto tripod. And then I thought, wouldn't it be cool if a penguin tried to steal one of the new Seiko He looked at it. Penguins like shiny things. And so, they did come and kind of look at it, but I couldn't get them to actually take it and steal it. I would have liked to have tried to explain that to Seiko. I think it was a dummy watch. So of course, then we have to go diving in Antarctica, and this was a stunning day. The sun was out, which means like the icebergs are going to glisten, and just wearing a single tank out here, so you don't go any deeper than about 60 feet. And that's because we're in a really remote place, and there's no hyperbaric chambers, and most of the diving, we want to stay near the surface anyways. It's just that's where the ice is, the penguins, that's where most of the life is. So here I am geared up on the side of the rib, got the camera, got the gear on, ready to get in the water, splash. Again, my mom would say, what are you doing? Like, you're in a slushy, you've got to look and move the ice away before you get into the water. And then you start to descend. So we swim up to the iceberg, and icebergs are very difficult to shoot because it's salt water and you've got fresh water, and when we're there in the Antarctic or Arctic summers, so they are melting, and when you're about 5 feet away from an iceberg, there's a bit of a halo line, like a mixing of fresh and salt water, so it can be really difficult to shoot icebergs. It's also really difficult on your buoyancy because you go from salt water and you swim closer to the freshwater glacier or iceberg, and you descend a couple feet. So it's a pretty wild experience. But this day we had crystal clear water. The sun was out, which made it nice. And one of my favorite things to do is just like run my hand down the silky ice because nothing else feels like it in the world. It's translucent and it's got all these like clear bits and sparkles. And as a photographer, I wish I could pick that up, but my photography will never do it justice. You've got to see it with your own eyes. So this was a really big iceberg. We went down about 60 feet. It kind of like went in on the bottom, and we swam around for a little while. It was pretty cool that day. My face is exposed to the water. Yeah, it's kind of like going to the dentist and getting an Novocaine and you just don't feel like it after 20 minutes. No, most of me is dry except for my cheeks, and then I do wear a thick hood because my hair does get wet too. But used to be a Florida girl, now it doesn't bother me. I don't feel the cold at all. That might be a problem. But I definitely love all this ice, and this was like a giant ice ball. And then we came across a really, really awesome apex predator in Antarctica called a leopard seal, and you got to make sure they've got the right attitude to get in the water because they are an apex predator and they can be dangerous. I've had a couple different experiences with them in Antarctica, and ones I've had been in the water with for 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes, were very curious and didn't really didn't feel threatening. But they are big, and they do like to sneak up behind you. And I do wear yellow fins, if you didn't notice. And so I want those to look like penguin feet, because that's where they eat penguins. And so they will come right up to you, they'll turn their heads, they'll swim around you, come behind you. They are very, very big animals. This was a medium-sized one. They can get up to about 15 feet long. Yeah. This is a juvenile. Here he is, checking out the camera. This one, you can see all the ice on the surface of the water. It's swimming with them, and it's hard moving through. You're like kicking big burden bits of ice, and you've got this big apex predator just zipping around below your feet, and you're trying to turn and just capture the right images. And this is why. So this one, my mom would say, "Oh, it's so cute." Oh, apex predators.
Yeah.
Why? They do have a mouthful of teeth. They demolish penguins, like demolish them. And there haven't been many instances where they hurt humans, but I don't want to be one of them. So when they start doing this, it's time to get out of the water. So, of course, then so that was Antarctica. We had an amazing expedition. We got, I think Seiko sent me like 12 watches, and I used them all. And then I just got back about 3.5 weeks ago from the Arctic again. So within 9 months, Arctic twice, Antarctica, and in 4 months I head back to Antarctica again for 2 more trips. So I definitely love the polar regions. There's just something about it. It's remote, being 500 miles from the North Pole and being able to go through pack ice and hear the boat crunching through the ice and seeing things like baby polar bears and reindeer, walrus, diving kelp is all pretty spectacular. We saw beluga whales, humpback whales, lots of really amazing glaciers. This is a fog bow, which I had never seen before, so it's like a rainbow, but in fog and there's no color. So the poles have some really incredible scenery, life, and they're unlike anywhere else on this planet. So I hope that someday, maybe after listening or watching this, it inspires you in some way. That's my goal. Whether you go to Antarctica or not, or go to the Arctic or not, maybe find out more about these areas because they really are special. And sometimes you look and think, oh, they're so far away. Like, it doesn't really exist. It's Antarctica. But it's there, and it's not that far away. I mean, 36 hours travel, but it's not that far. So, more adventures await. Why is this tropical? I'm heading to Galapagos next, the equator, and we're going to bring back some marine iguanas, sharks, and things like that. And then I've got a lot of really other awesome expeditions coming up next year, cave diving, we're diving in the Great Lakes on shipwrecks, and there's 2 more trips back to Antarctica in February, March, so can't get enough. Absolutely amazing. So I would like to thank you guys again for having me.